Want to talk about love? Anybody? It's such a overstudied, over-quoted, over-analyzed subject. I mean, what's left to say about it? So let's do something a little different. Down with love. It's a terrible thing. It's doing more harm than good. We got to come out against it and make sure that everybody knows not to get close to the subject, because it's really, really bad. It's become an obsession, actually, where we blame everything on the lack of love, and the solution to everything is more love. It's silly. It's too simplistic, and it's not working. It's not working. Ever since Tevye's daughters got married out of love, marriage has gone down the tubes. You notice? And not only in Anatevka, everywhere. We get right to the heart of the problem. If I love somebody, they're the most important person in the world. If I stop loving him, he's garbage. This cannot be. My love cannot invest people with importance and can't take away their importance when I stop loving them. It's nasty. The Mishnah says, a love that is dependent on something will not last, because if that something goes away, the love is gone. A love that is not dependent on anything can last. What exactly is the wisdom of that statement? If I love you for your money and you lose your money, guess what will happen? You don't have to be a sage. If I loved you for your money and you lost your money, I don't love you anymore, of course. Well, actually, I never loved you. If I love you for your money, I don't love you. I love your money. So if a man says to a woman, please marry me, I need the money. Or I love you for your money, let's get married. What is wrong with the statement? It's not true. I don't love you, I just want the money. So if this was a perfect world, you would just give me the money and don't make things so complicated. But it's not a perfect world, so what am I going to have to do to get your money? I'll have to marry you. All right, I'll marry you. Actually, I'm not even marrying you. I'm marrying the money. So why, if the money is gone, is the love gone? I mean, that's a little obvious. If the money is gone, the relationship is gone, because we were never related to each other. When the love has something in between, we love each other because, then we are loving the because and not each other. Right? If what brings us together is the money, then we're both in love with money, not with each other. So here's the shocking thing. Is love any better or different than money? If we're getting married because we're in love, guess what's going to happen? If the love goes away, there's no relationship. In content and in truth, there was no marriage between the two people. So if the money goes away, I don't understand why you're in my life. What are you doing in my life? I never invited you. All I wanted was the love. So they get married, they're very much in love, and 2 weeks into the marriage, the wife says to her husband, I don't like when you do that. What does the husband say? Check the marriage agreement. Didn't say anything about your opinion. I married you for the love. Keep coming with the love. Don't give me your opinion. It was not part of the deal. You're in a bad mood? Sorry, that was not part of the deal. You have a personality? I didn't marry you for that. Just the love. Stick to the love. That was the agreement. No wonder marriages are so fragile. Because love is so fragile, the way it's supposed to be. Love is not a beast of burden that you can build a relationship on. Love is the spice, the sizzle, not the steak. So what is the steak? So this young couple, back a few years, kind of hippies, they come over to me and they say, we are very much in love and we would like to get married. Would you do the wedding? I said, you're in love? They said, yes. I said, then don't get married. What do you need it for? You're marrying for love, but you already have the love. Let it be. Don't complicate things. So what's the point of getting married if you already love each other? Well, we want to make a commitment. A commitment to what? To love each other or stay married to each other when the love is gone? You're not going to do it. And why should you? You're marrying for love and the love goes away. So what, are you arresting yourself by getting married? Are you punishing yourself for being in love? What is that? So, all of a sudden, we have an ancient question. What's marriage? Nobody's interested. Everybody wants to know what is love. But what's marriage? Why do people marry? Especially if they're already in love. What are you hoping to gain? For better or for worse, in illness and in such a liar, you just said you're doing it out of love. It's contradiction. Now, Jerry Seinfeld has this routine. He says, I go to these weddings, I don't understand. The bride wears a very unique, different outfit than anybody else in the room. But the groom is wearing the same tuxedo that all the other guys are wearing. Yet they rented it all in the same place. Why is that? He said, and then I listened to the vows and I understood. Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? This man, they don't mention a name. Because in case she says no, there's another guy in a tuxedo. Do you take this man? No. You gotta like somebody. What in the world is the marriage for? There's another serious problem. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I assure you that it's true. You know, there's a lot of confusion, gender confusion, like what's a woman and why. If you are a woman, why? Are you a woman? I was speaking somewhere, make a long story short, and I said, tradition means You do what your grandfather did, what his grandfather did. That's tradition. This woman gets very upset. And she said, why are you ignoring half the population? I said, what do you mean? You said grandfather. Why didn't you say grandmother? This was about 4 years ago. I said, boy, are you behind the times? How dare you assume that my grandfather was a male? I meant it as a joke. She took it seriously. She said, oh, I'm sorry. And that's scary. So we're very confused. So, what's the right way? What's the proper way to be heterosexual or homosexual? What's the right way? What if I prefer one over the other? That was a hot issue for many, many years. Gay rights and all of that. It's completely irrelevant today. Because what has happened factually is that all sexuality has become boring, insignificant, and uninteresting. People are not interested anymore in any kind of sex. According to the Pew study, the average couple are intimate. They live together, they sleep in the same bed, they are intimate maybe once a month. This is not good news. They're just not interested. So what happens when you wake up, you're a teenager or even younger, and you realize, I'm not interested in men, I'm not interested in women, I'm just not interested. So what am I now? Maybe I'm in the wrong body. This is the crisis we're in today. How did that happen? Well, there used to be a time when intimacy was intimate. It was intimate. It was scary. It was dangerous. It was awesome. And the people got together and said, you know, you're making too much of a big deal about it. Lighten up. It's fun. It's normal. It's healthy. It's natural. So don't get so serious about it. Have some fun. In the 60s, free love. Free love meant free of commitment, free of meaning, but mostly free of intimacy. Don't take it so seriously ended up meaning don't take me so seriously. And that was the end of intimacy. So let's take a quick look. What is intimate and what happened to it? Where did it go? Or let's say, what is the difference between love and intimacy? So first, the short answer. Love means an emotion that is positive, pleasant, and fulfilling. When you feel love or loved, you're full. It fills you up. It makes you feel substantial, significant. And that is the pleasure of love, the pleasure of feeling full. The pleasure of intimacy is the pleasure of getting past self and not feeling yourself at all. Ever have that experience? You simply forgot about yourself. You were so enthralled and so busy with something else that for a moment there, you simply forgot that you exist at all. And that felt so good. They used to call it ecstasy. It's not love. Love means I am as full as I can be. And that's a little limited, because I can only be so big. Intimacy means I transcend myself. I am not functioning within myself. I'm into something higher, bigger than me, and for a moment, I am not self-conscious. That is a higher pleasure than love. People used to do all sorts of things to experience that feeling, to get past themselves. Some people are so desperate, they'll actually take dangerous drugs. They'll do things that bring them close to death. Death-defying, because they want to get past that limit that keeps them who they are. Many alcoholics are that way. They don't want to be drunk. They want to be unconscious of themselves. And it's a powerful motivator. So again, the difference between love and intimacy. Love means I am working at my maximum pleasure experience. Intimacy means I am beyond my own limit. I am experiencing the pleasure of something bigger than me. We. Religious people used to have that experience. Spiritual people seek that experience. To put it in terms of Torah learning, what was the tree of knowledge that they were not supposed to eat from? What does knowledge mean? Not rocket science. Knowledge means self-conscious. That's pretty obvious from the text. They were naked and they were not ashamed, but when they ate from the tree, they were ashamed, which means they became self-conscious. Not they became conscious of sin. That's not the Jewish approach. In the Garden of Eden, there was no sin. Adam and Eve were not capable of sinning. They were way too holy, way too godly. There was no sin that they were suddenly ashamed of. They became self-conscious. Now, being self-conscious is a good thing or a bad thing? If you're not self-conscious, you're not a fully functional human being. If you are self-conscious, you're not a fully functioning human being, because being self-conscious handicaps you. I can't, I'm ashamed, blah. So, is it a good thing to be self-conscious, or is it not? What was that tree called? The tree of knowledge, good and evil. Not knowledge of good and evil. A kind of knowledge that is good and it's bad. That knowledge means self-conscious. Das in Hebrew doesn't mean learned or scholarly or information. It means self-aware. It's a form of wisdom. But the downside is You become self-conscious, and all of a sudden, you can't function. What are people going to say? Who's looking? What else? It derails you. So it is the best of things to be self-conscious, and it's the worst of things. Our job is to take the good and eliminate the bad. Be self-conscious in all the positive ways that it offers, and avoid or rid yourself of the negative self-conscious. That's why happy people are more functional. They're not self-conscious. If they can laugh at themselves, they have the positive side of self-consciousness without the negative side. So if you're terribly sensitive, and every comment and every criticism and every dirty look kills the day for you, you're not having any fun. So happiness, true happiness, not true happiness means I am free to some degree of that negative self-consciousness. So what does intimacy mean? Intimacy means I have grown past my need for all things. I need nothing. Because if I need something, then even if I love you, it will be for something. If I'm thinking materialistic, why would I love somebody? A benefit, a gain. We don't do things without a gain. What would motivate me to do something if there's no gain? That's materialistic mentality. I'll do this if I get that. I'll give you if you will give me. That's materialism, even if you're talking about love. So if I get past all things, I don't care. I'm done. I gave myself 20 years, 30 years to accumulate all the things I might want or need. I'm finished. I don't want anymore. Now I become capable of actual love. Actual love means I love the person, not something I gain from that person, including love. I don't love you in order to get love back from you. Who does that? Who does that? And if you are loving somebody, you're not getting love back, don't they describe that as a loser, a wimp, codependent, go for therapy? You're loving and you're not getting something back? Let's put it in different words. Don't get married unless you're perfect. And don't marry someone who is not perfect. Because if they're not perfect, they still want things. If they want things, let them handle it themselves. You have no place in their life. So this guy says to me, I love everything about my wife. I said, that is so interesting. Because I just spoke to your wife and she wants a divorce. So why would that be? You love everything about her? He says, yes. I said, do you love her? He said, I just told you, I love everything about her. Do you love her? He says, what does that mean? What does that mean? If you take away all things, what's left? What's to love? This is the critical dangerous condition that our thinking, our philosophy of life, our way of life is going to make us extinct. If you take away all things, what's left? It's what everybody says. Why can't you just love me for me? Love me for what I am. I would if I knew what you am. What am you? Ask somebody that. Do you love me the way I am? For who I am? I said, tell me, who am you? They don't know. Nobody has an answer to that question. Now they use words like, for my essence, for the real me, for my soul. Now, if I loved your soul, you'd be very upset. Oh, my soul you love. What about me? Who is the me? Who is it that wants to be loved? Who is this me that is crying? We don't know, because we've become too materialistic. How many times you hear people say, I don't know what's wrong with my husband, he's just not happy. I don't know what's wrong with my wife, no matter what I do, she's not happy. So you go for therapy and you get all tangled up into childhood trauma, you're not being validated. It's not helping. Now, we do know that there is a me, and in fact, you've experienced it. The wife is out of town. The husband says, I miss her. I say, what do you miss? I say, I miss her. Yeah, well, what do you miss about her? All of a sudden, that's not a good question. She's not here, I miss her. Well, what do you miss about her? Nothing. But she's not here, I miss her. So you do know what her is. The sad thing is, as soon as her comes home, it immediately becomes about something. Oh, good, you're home. Now you can... If we can get a good definition, our lives can be vastly improved. Who is crying? Everyone is upset. Everyone is hurt. There's pain and agony. Nobody sees me. Nobody accepts me. Everybody wants something from me. The result is that you feel alone in the world. If nobody knows the real you, if nobody accepts the real you, then the real you is completely alone in the world. And that is not a good feeling. All the experts are now saying, finally, the biggest crisis in our generation is loneliness. And that invites all sorts of other problems. What do you do when you're desperately lonely? Get yourself into trouble, that's what you do. You mess up your life. Let's see if we can get a definition here. God created the world. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. What's the first question we should ask? The first fundamental question is, God is perfect, God is eternal, God is infinite, God is all-knowing and all-powerful. What in the world would he create a world for? What could he possibly gain by creating a world? Except complaints. He creates the world, he's the landlord. What does a landlord get? Complaints. Why would he create the world? Now people say, well, that's a profound question. How can we possibly know? These are deep thoughts. You got to study Kabbalah or something, and even then you're not going to know the answer. No. Very, very simple. In the beginning, there was nothing but God, who was infinite, eternal, and perfect. What's he missing? What's he missing? Let me say this again. In the beginning, there was only God, who was infinite, eternal, and perfect. What's missing?
He was alone.
Huh?
He was alone with himself.
See, I just told you what was missing. There was only him. We think that's a compliment. We're complimenting God. Before there was anything, there was him. How would you like to be God? You're perfect, you're eternal, and you're infinite. It's horrible. No? Like, what do you say to somebody who is perfect, eternal, and infinite? What's new? Nothing. What's happening? Nothing. What are you doing this weekend? Nothing. I am the way I am, and nothing will ever change. I am perfect. See, perfect and nothing are synonyms. They mean the same thing. If you're perfect, nothing is going on. Nothing is going on. Now, is that terrible?
It's boring.
Huh?
It's boring.
Why? What is this thing called boring? I am so perfect, I don't need to breathe. I don't need to move. I don't need to think. I am perfect. That's boring? There is something divine, completely mysterious to the human being. A human being who is perfectly content. Because what could be more perfect? But because we are created in God's image, we inherited from him this weird hang-up. Being just me is not enough. Why? What are you missing? Nothing. So what's your problem? There's just me. Yeah, but you're perfect and good and great. Yeah, but there's just me. If you were God, you would find yourself unhappy and unsatisfied being who you are. Being perfect is not enough. Isn't that amazing? So you're perfect, so what? So what? So if you're asking, why would God create the world? You see, what you're actually saying is, so what? If you create the world, you're looking for something. You're going for something. What? You're already perfect. So the simple answer, God is perfect because he's lacking nothing. But he is divinely romantic because he's missing someone. To be perfect, you have to be complete in all things. That doesn't make you a nice guy, because there's just you. Intimacy is the feeling, just me. I'm great, I know. In fact, I'm perfect, I know. So what? Where's content? Where is meaning? Where is substance? Where is goodness? When you are perfect and alone, there is no goodness. So perfect is not a compliment. Perfect is a predicament. You get married because you're perfect. Not because you don't know how to cook or parallel park. Not even because you can't have a baby by yourself. You get married because being perfect is not good. Oh, wait a minute. God actually said that. It's not good to be alone. Why did he say that? Because if he hadn't said it, we would be perfectly content to be alone as human beings. So the discontent with being alone is a godly gift. We're mirroring God. He, for no known reason, does not feel content to be alone, as perfect as he is. We have that same instinct from him. That's why marriage is a magical, mystical, godly idea. If you don't feel that lack, then don't get married. And it's not loneliness. You know the line from that famous song I'm talking about? Piano Man. They're sharing a drink they call loneliness, but it's better than drinking alone. Brilliant. There's a difference between lonely and alone. People say, you know, you're feeling lonely and you got to do something. You go to a nightclub and you party, and you're not lonely for the moment. But then you come home and you realize you're still lonely. No. You come home and you realize you're alone. Worse. You feel worse because you just did something about loneliness, and now you realize there's nothing you can do about being alone. Loneliness you can share. Lonely people get together and they make each other feel good. But alone, there's nothing. Marriage is the cure to perfect aloneness. Is it making any sense? Perfect aloneness, which we could think is a wonderful, admirable, enviable thing. No, it's terrible. In many ways, in our generation, we are more perfect than ever. We are much more perfect than our grandparents, our great-grandparents. They had nothing, we have everything. They married each other because they were looking for intimacy. Did they share a lot of common interests? No. Did they love everything about each other? Absolutely not. They didn't agree on anything. And so they spent 80 wonderful years bickering endlessly. We're doing the opposite. We have everything. We only marry people we love and have a lot in common. Walks in the rain and pina colada. So we marry everything about each other, we just don't marry each other. So for them, the grandparents, divorce was like, what, are you out of your mind? Not have each other? Yeah, but you're constantly fighting. We're fighting about things, not fighting about each other. We love everything about each other, but as soon as we see the other, I'm out of here. Now we might be able to appreciate a definition. Who is this other who is crying for recognition? God created the world so that there would be an other. So he's not the only one. But here, no, after he created angels, he should have been content. He created angels, and now he's not alone. The problem is, angels don't have free choice. So they're not someone other, they're just more of him. If you marry your clone, you're still alone. You're married to yourself. To marry someone other means other opinion, other needs, other feelings, other personality. So what does it mean? Why can't you accept me as I am? How am you? Why can't you accept me for not being you? Because if I can accept you for not being me, then I have someone other than me in my life. But if I insist that you have to be like me, or like my mother, why can't you be like my mother? If I insist that you match me, you fit with me, you synchronize. In other words, I don't want the part of you that is not me. That's the part that cries. Every person, being an independent person, cries because nobody likes me being not them. But who else could I be? So why doesn't anybody love me for not being like them? God loves us because we're not like him. We have our own free will, our own embarrassing needs, feeble minds, but it's our own. And that's why he was not content with the angels. He created human beings with freedom of choice. Now there is someone other. So, when, for example, the wife says, my husband's a good man. We like things together, we do things, we go places. I don't think he's really there for me. And again, this frustrating question. What do you mean by me? I bought you everything you asked for. Yeah, but are you there for me? You're just making me crazy. What does that mean? The me is the part of me that can't be you. Do you love that? Do you want that in your life? It's somewhat similar to, do you really want your children to be independent? You really want them to have an opinion that is not yours at all, and you're going to love it? It is not difficult to be the other. In fact, you can't help it, you are the other. So if marriage means, I want you in my life, not your love, not your money, not your looks, not your sex. I want you, meaning the part of you that really irritates me. The part of you that I'll never understand and I'll never be able to relate to because you're weird. Just because you're not like me. And that's the part I love. Like a parent who really wants their children to be independent, and the child does something independent that every other parent would be offended and threatened, and these parents say, what a kid. Wow, like that. But here's the thing. Of course, you should be yourself and the other to your spouse. But then how do you blend your lives? That's intimacy. Intimacy means I can, at least for a moment, melt and dissolve into your reality, even though it is not mine. And when you can do that mutually, you experience intimacy. Again, intimacy means the pleasure of not being me. Not the pleasure of filling up the me, perfecting the ego, validating yourself. It's a dead-end street. Eventually, that's it. You can't anymore. The pleasure of intimacy means I have experienced not being me. And not by hallucinating or having a near-death experience. I have for a moment transcended being me because I completely dissolved into you. And for a moment, I didn't know who was who. And I didn't care, because it is a great pleasure. That kind of pleasure bonds people. Anyone who has had that experience even once in their married lives are bonded forever, and if they should ever separate, it would feel like an amputation. Love does not do that. No matter how much you love each other, it doesn't bond you. It's a condition. The other is tolerable because I'm getting love from the other, and love is my thing. So I'll put up with her being her, or with him being him, as long as I'm getting the thing that is meaningful to me. So whether it's love, or money, or sex. So sex used to be intimate, because it was about melting into the other and becoming bonded. Well, that's a big complication. So in the 60s, we decided no more bonding, sex without bonding, which means no more intimacy. Okay, to sum it all up very briefly. If somebody asks you, what did you talk about last night at the Chabad house? we spoke about the fact that love and sex are terrible for marriage. Now let them figure it out. Love destroys marriages, sex destroys marriages. Because those are things that get in the way between the husband and the wife. If you can remove those things and be perfect, because you need no thing, then you can be intimate. So there is no greater intimacy than God creating us. Because no one is more perfect than him, and no one is more uncontent with being alone than him. We have to imitate God. So step number one is become perfect. You have the weekend to do that. After the weekend, when you're perfect, get married to your spouse. But get married, which means move past things into the intimacy where two people can actually become one. How can they become one? Because each of them can't stand being alone. That moves me past myself. Let me put this whole thing in a completely different context so that you can... You know this phenomenon of people see a child stuck under a bus and they'll pick up the bus with their bare hands? Happens, right? People don't do heroic things when there's a crisis, when there's a need. Any other time, they're completely incapable. And come back the next day and try to pick up the same bus. It's not possible. What's the explanation? I think the scientific explanation is adrenaline. When you see that child stuck under the bus, your adrenaline starts to pump, and the adrenaline gives you the strength to... Here's an interesting thought. The guy who picked up the bus when the child was stuck under the bus gets hit by a bus, and he's under the bus. Will he pick it up? No. No way. Why isn't his adrenaline pumping? Why? This is so amazing. If he picks up the truck, or tries to, he would be doing it out of self-love. I want this truck off of me, this bus off of me, because I love myself. I want to save myself. Okay, so pick up the bus. Can't, it's impossible. But when a total stranger was stuck under the bus yesterday, you could pick it up. Tell me what this is. You walk past a lake, and there's someone thrashing around in the water. They're drowning. You have your schedule that you have to keep. You're on your way to an appointment. You don't have time for this. Why don't you keep walking? You don't know whoever it is there in the lake. Why don't you keep walking? It's none of your business. You're walking in the park and there's a baby abandoned in a bush, on the bench, crying. Not your baby. You don't like babies. You're in a hurry to get to a meeting. Keep walking. Can you? You want to. I don't need this, but you can't. You can't keep walking. What is that? If you did keep walking, it would bother you, your conscience would keep you awake at night for a month. What is that? One final point. You jump into the water to save the guy who's drowning, and then you realize, wait a minute, I can't swim. What did you just do? You're not a lifeguard. You can't swim. But you do. What is that? You can't pick up a bus. But you do. Because you don't stop to think. If you stop for a second to think, let's see, when's the last time I picked up a bus? Sorry, can't do it. This is amazing. If you're doing something out of love, you're being yourself. Maybe your best self. But you're being yourself. Well, yourself can't pick up buses. Yourself can't swim. Yourself doesn't like babies. But when you see the need, when you see a need, all of a sudden it's not about you. Nobody's asking you whether you love the guy drowning or whether you love babies. That's irrelevant. What is now relevant? What's motivating you? What is pumping your adrenaline right now? The need. What needs to happen? Now, you are not as strong as yourself. You become as strong as the need. I often wonder, a guy sees a baby stuck under a car. He lifts up the car. If it was a bus, could he lift up the bus? Hey, come on, it's a lot heavier. He can lift up the bus when it's empty, but not when it's full of people. It's too heavy. Really, would it make a difference? He can lift up a car, he can lift up a bus. Can he lift up a train? There's no limit. If the need is really important to you, you become as strong as the need. But if it's love, love can only make you who you are, not bigger than who you are. That's why if you're serving God, you can survive everything. If you're serving God, then the threat of being shot in the head doesn't intimidate you. Why, are you that strong a person? No. But this is not about me. So when I'm here to serve God, in some way, I become as strong as God. That's why, as a people, we are indestructible. So again, this is the difference between a marriage based on love or a marriage based on other. What do you need? What you need doesn't intimidate me, it empowers you. If you didn't need it, I would never be able to do it. But because you need it, suddenly I can. Because now I'm bigger than love. I'm bigger than me. That bond, it's unbreakable. You have to have an amputation. So Hollywood has made us crazy. Pop psychology has made us crazy. Stop loving yourself. It's not nice. It's like talking to yourself. Love is not meant to be absorbed. Love is meant to be given. You don't have love to keep it. You have love to give it. That's the reality. And all this talk about love yourself, validate yourself, put yourself first, you're choking on it. Doesn't work. I just had this experience yesterday. We had this program for Beis Chana women, older women, in Pensacola. We were there for a week, studying, talking, learning. And this woman sat down and gave me this terrible, terrible, horrible description of her husband, who she can't get through to. She demands and she complains and she criticizes and nothing gets through. And she's frustrated because she's not getting what she needs out of this relationship. And she starts telling me about her background, her childhood, that left her very needy. You know, after a while, all these stories sound the same. So you got to understand, when I was growing up, I said, let me finish the story. Your parents got divorced. They were very critical with each other. You were caught between them. You didn't know who to take sides with. Eventually, you took sides. Now So she starts saying, my childhood was I said, stop. Let's cut to the chase. We can sit here for hours and talk about it, and it's all true and it's all good. My sympathy is with your husband. You think you're getting the rotten end of a deal? All he ever hears from you is criticism. All he ever hears from you is how unhappy you are. And now you're wondering why he's not the man of your dreams. Stop it. He's the one who needs attention, not you. I've never done this before. But something about, it felt like she was ready to hear it. So I told her that I had had another marriage counseling session with this woman who was complaining about her husband. I said, when your husband comes home from work, he walks in the door, what are you feeling? She says, disgusted. Disgusted. Whew. I said, if I were your husband, I would never come home. What, to come home to my house to get a look of disgust? I wouldn't come home. She says, what are you saying? What am I saying? I'm saying that I feel very bad for your husband. It's his house, it's his home, and he walks in and gets a look of disgust, so he's not even welcome in his own home. I feel terrible for him. She says, so what's the alternative? I said, I don't know. I just feel bad for him. I think it's a great pity. I mean, a guy who's his home has been hijacked, and he's not welcome in his house. Why would he want to come home? A few days later, she calls me, and she says, I'm going to tell you something. I finally decided that maybe you're right. So the other day, when my husband came home, instead of looking at him with disgust, I looked at him with compassion. Poor guy. You know he's a nice guy. That's what she said. That's all it took. The man suddenly was welcomed home. Does that change things? You're like, whoa, a whole new lease on life. I have a home I can come home to. What did it take? A very simple thing. Stop worrying about what you need and give someone else what they need. everyone is happier. So here's the bottom line. Pop psychology has got it backwards. The more you get, the worse you're going to be, the unhappier you're going to be. Because it's not what we thrive on. It's not. We're not built that way. When you feel like you're making a difference to someone else, now you feel like you've got a purpose, you've got a direction, you've got meaning in your life. And what do you need? Oh, who cares? That's so good. The Rebbe was very, very sympathetic when somebody said, I have a problem, I'm unhappy. It was very sympathetic in the first half of the letter. You can find satisfaction in this, and you should feel good about that. You're a great person, you're accomplishing. But you know what? If you thought about other people, you'd be a lot happier. So the Rebbe would always empower you to do something. So I just remember this little story. In the early years, when the Rebbe was Rebbe, there were two Orthodox Jews came. They happened to be in Crown Heights. And they noticed the Rebbe walking home from Eastern Parkway to President Street. They were traditional, observant Jews. They said, come, let's go say shalom to the Rebbe. And one of them said, no, I don't want to. The other one said, okay, I'm going to go. He said, don't go. He said, what do you mean? This is Lubavitcher Rebbe, greatest guy in town. I'm going to say hello. He says, no, don't go. He said, that's ridiculous. And he went. He says, hello, shalom aleichem to the Rebbe. The Rebbe says, where are you from? He said, Cleveland. The Rebbe said, you know, the mikveh in Cleveland, I hear, is not up to grade. It's not up to, and it's possible that some women will not want to go to the mikveh because it's a little shabby. So see what you can do about it. That's it, Nick. Rebbe kept walking. The guy comes back to his friend, and he says, the Rebbe gave me a job to fix the mikveh in Cleveland. The guy says, I told you not to go. He always does that. You should have expected it. He always does that. He always refocuses your attention on what you can do for others. And as a result, you're a happier, more meaningful, more mature, more mindful individual. So let's do that. If you're from Cleveland, fix the mikveh. What do you think?